Alright, let's take a look at a few more variations of factoring a difference of squares. So once again, if we recall, a difference of squares can be factored, and a difference of squares looks like a squared minus b squared. It can be factored using this template, square root of a squared plus minus the square root of b squared. Okay, so let's take a look at the first example. So we have 9x squared minus 16y squared. Well, you want to ask yourself, okay, does this guy look like a squared minus b squared? So I'm going to let this guy represent a squared and this guy here represent b squared, and now it will look like a squared minus b squared. And then if we use the template, we get square root of a squared, which is 9x squared, plus minus square root of b squared, which is 16y squared. And recall that the plus minus represents the two conjugate factors, and conjugate is basically where you have the same two terms but on opposite sign in between the terms. Alright, so if we have a square root of 9x squared, we get 3x, plus minus, if we get a square root of 16y squared, we get 4y, and then we basically get 3x plus minus 4y. So our two conjugate factors is 3x plus 4y and 3x minus 4y. Okay, so that's basically how you factor this expression. Let's take a look at example 2. Now this one's a little bit trickier, but you can still employ the same notion. Now you can notice here that there isn't a square anymore, it's the power of 4. Well, I can write this guy, right, because I want to write this in the form of a squared minus b squared. So I want to make this a squared, and I want to write this guy as b squared. Well, you can write x to the power of 4 as x squared squared, right? So you need to write both of these guys as a square. And you can write 16 as 4 squared, right? So in this sense, you can also use just the template, right? You can also just do square root of x to the power of 4 minus plus minus square root of 16. And in this case, you'll see that you'll get x squared plus minus 4. Okay. Now, when you have these two conjugate factors, x squared plus minus 4, one of your conjugates is x squared plus 4, and the other conjugate is x squared minus 4. Now, at this point, you can actually notice that this guy also kind of looks like a squared minus b squared. So you actually have to factor this again. So in this case, I'm just going to let this represent, the x squared represent a squared, and the 4 here represent b squared, and then I do the same thing all over again, right? So if I do the same thing, I'm going to use the template, so I do square root of x squared plus minus the square root of 4, which is basically x plus minus 2. Okay, so that's going to give me x plus 2 times x minus 2, so those are my two conjugate factors for just this term, and then I also have the x squared plus 4 from the factorization I did before, and this guy is your answer. So that's how you can factor out this expression, x to the power 4 minus 16.